semi-automatic handgun. He knocked on the door, and when the door was opened, Pardo opened fire. Several victims that were there that at that time immediately fell. They were killed. One potential victim escaped to a neighbor's house, and they was able to phone the police. It is reported by the police that Pardo killed some of the family members execution style, which is horrible. Following the chaos, this man, Pardo, he opened the package that was wrapped up that he carried with him to reveal a flamethrower that he had built himself. He sprayed the entire house with fuel, then set the house and some of the victims on fire. In the process, he himself was badly burned. Now he left the house set ablaze, injured and in pain, and eventually firefighters arrived and spent over an hour and a half putting the fire out. It was eventually revealed that Pardo took 10 lives, including his own. Now, the very bizarre detail of the Pardo murders is what happened after he killed his victims and set the house on fire. It seems that though he even burned himself, he drove to his brother's house over 30 miles away. His brother wasn't at home at the time of his arrival. However, Pardo had entered his house and taken his own life with a shotgun. Now, because of the heat of the fire, it was reported that large chunks of the polyester Santa suit had been melted into Pardo's skin. Bruce Pardo was a man with no previous history of violence or mental illness. However, it was clear that he was gearing up for something for a while because after his death, the police recovered even more guns and bombs and other instruments like that at his residence. One can only speculate why Pardo went from an ordinary man to a Santa Claus bomb maker. It was learned that he was recently fired from his job as an electrical engineer, which can weigh heavily on anyone, I suppose. Additionally, he recently divorced his wife, and he was ordered to pay child support when he was already paying child support for 3 other children from yet a previous marriage. And it seems as though he couldn't afford it. So it could just be that Pardo was just in, extreme dire straits, eager to free himself from his ex-wife and the mountain of debt. Perhaps in such thoughts of despair, one might think of unimaginable ways to escape. Now, I surely wouldn't, of course, but nevertheless, an entire family ended up dead at the hands of an evil Santa Claus. But my question is, why would someone choose Christmas to do such a heinous act? I guess that is a question that many folks take to the grave, and we will never truly know the answer. There have been reports of multiple occurrences and paranormal activity at multiple locations resulting from this crime, including noises, voices, and even apparitions, which is all truly disturbing, that case. Our next case takes us to Chicago, Illinois, and as you can imagine, there are lots and lots and lots of stories that come out of Chicago on every holiday, on every, lots of locations also. So it seems as though this 41-year-old man was discovered decapitated in a Chicago home on Christmas Day in 2013. Excuse me. Now, the murder took place in a quiet, secure neighborhood. Now, the older man, he was murdered by an 18-year-old Alexis Valdez in the basement. The relationship between the two men, it was unclear at the time, but one woman saw them fighting outside before the murder took place. It is also unclear if the man was decapitated before or after he was killed. Some of the evidence does point to after he was killed. Now, what's even more gruesome than decapitating somebody on Christmas, following the investigation, it was discovered that the man killed was Valdez's aunt's boyfriend. It was reported that the head was actually intended as a gift or present, if you will, for his aunt. It has been reported that outside the home where this gruesome murder took place, people have seen the apparition of a man standing in the windows. Gruesome and spooky indeed, and such a horrific crime on Christmas Day. Absolutely. Excuse me. This next case comes from Ashland, Kentucky, and I'll tell you, there's lots of hauntings and lots of tales and everything centering down south. But this next one comes from Ashland, Kentucky, and that's a small city, and it sat on the banks of the Ohio River. It was also the home to the well-known Gibbons family. Now, on Christmas Eve, back in 1881, a horrific crime took place. There were 3 children in the Gibbons household. Robert, he was 17, and he was also disabled. Then there was Fanny, who was 14, and there was Sterling, who was 11. Sterling, the 11-year-old, was not present at the time of this horrific crime. However, Fanny, the daughter, she had a neighborhood friend over whose name was Emma, and Emma was 15. She was spending the night with the Gibbons girl. So, actually, on December 23rd, 1881, the older Gibbons children and the neighborhood next door girl Emma, they were left at home alone, and it seems that in the wee hours of the night, just as it turned Christmas Eve, 3 fellas broke into their house. They spotted Robert, the disabled boy, first, and they killed him straight away by bludgeoning him in the head with a crowbar. Next, the 3 men took turns sexually assaulting the 2 girls, and each girl was killed using an axe to their head. Of course, the 3 men had to cover up their tracks of the horrific things they had done, and they found some fuel oil cans in the house, and they dumped it all over the children and all around the house, and they set the house on fire. Fortunately, the parents weren't that far away, and they saw the flames from the house, and of course they called the police. The children were recovered. However, all the evidence had been destroyed in the fire. The 3 men were found out. One actually confessed, and they were charged with the murders. A man named George Ellis, a man named William Neal, and another man named Ellis Craft were the 3 men. Neal and Craft were sentenced to death, while Ellis was sentenced to life in prison for these crimes. Now, to make a long story short, the mob, as well as angry townspeople, took matters into their own hands, and they broke into the jail and took all the guilty guys, and they took the law into their own hands and performed their own hanging. And back in those days, vigilante justice was not that uncommon. Paranormal activity has been reported in the area where the Gibbons house had burned down. Reports of apparitions to be that of the children have been spotted in the vicinity where the house was. This is such a sad and tragic case on Christmas Eve, nonetheless. Now, this next case we come up, it takes us to San Diego, California. On Christmas Eve in 2013, a triple homicide took place in San Diego. The case had police stumped for a short time, and it also became notorious among the locals. The first two victims in the case were shot in the Macy's parking lot at the Mission Valley Mall. The two victims were Flint and Salvatore. They died in the hospital a couple of days later. The third victim was Salvatore's brother, as well as Flint's fiance. Now, this fella, Gianni, he went missing after the shooting and was later discovered in the trunk of his car. He'd also been shot. A man named Carlo Mercado was arrested in connection with the three murders. Now, it's been reported that on Christmas Eve, the ghost of Flint and Salvatore has been seen in the Macy's parking lot. And this has happened on more than one occasion. So I would be interested in going to check that out to see if I could spot them. Now, the next case takes us to Irvington, New Jersey. On Christmas Eve in 2013, a deadly, horrific crime happened at this New Jersey strip club called Slick's Go-Go Bar. The bar was filled with over 100 patrons and workers on this very night. Now, there's this man named Anthony Fields, who was 19 at the time. He came to this strip club with a concealed gun. Now, the bouncer of the strip club wouldn't let him enter because, of course, he had a gun. So, Anthony Fields opened fire, killing the bouncer and two other people inside. Beyond that, two other people were injured during the assault. And it was found that Fields was intoxicated when he committed these murders, and he was later apprehended at his mother's house in Florida. It has been reported that strange noises has been heard, as well as other paranormal anomalies have been reported around the Christmas holiday in this strip club. What do you think about that? No place is out of bounds for hauntings. It seems so odd and strange to me why and how, at such a joyous occasion, being Christmas, that people would even think to commit such atrocious crimes. I often wonder what goes through the minds of these killers. Could they be products of mental illness? Could they, be in such despair, loneliness, financial burdens, so much so that they would kill other people on Christmas? This is just hard for me to fathom. But like I said earlier, Christmas does not get a free pass from murders that get committed on this day. And with that, we will be right back after this short break with more Ghost Talk Radio. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting.